Your life as Dwayne Johnson. Stage 1. Born into pressure. You are not born into peace. You are born into pressure, before the lights, before the catchphrases, before the billions in box office revenue. You are a boy sitting cross-legged on a cold metal folding chair in a dim locker room, watching your father tape his wrists before a match. The fluorescent lights flicker slightly overhead. The air smells like sweat, leather, and liniment, that sharp medicinal scent that clings to wrestling mats and muscle. Your father is Rocky Johnson. Not a movie star, not a global icon, not a billionaire brand. A professional wrestler who earns every dollar with bruises. A man who steps into arenas knowing pain is part of the contract. You watch him lace his boots with the focus of a soldier preparing for battle. You don't fully understand the business yet, but you understand sacrifice. This is your childhood backdrop. You don't grow up in one place. You grow up in motion. Hawaii, Pennsylvania, New Zealand, Tennessee, different schools, different accents, different classrooms where you are always the new kid, always adjusting, always proving. Apartments come and go. Furniture is minimal because moving is frequent. Stability feels temporary. Sometimes the rent is paid, sometimes it isn't. Sometimes things are calm. Sometimes tension hangs quietly in the room at night when your parents think you're asleep. You remember one day clearly, you're 14, you come home and the locks are changed, evicted, no dramatic music, no inspirational speech, no heroic soundtrack swelling in the background, just reality. Your mother tries to stay strong, but you can see it in her eyes. The worry, the exhaustion, the frustration of fighting the same battle over and over. Your father tries to stay proud, shoulders squared, jaw tight, refusing to let the world see cracks, and you absorb it quietly. You don't explode, you don't complain, you watch. You learn something before most kids ever do. Security is fragile. It can disappear between sunrise and sunset. You also learn something else. Strength is necessary, but not the kind in the mirror, the kind in the mind. You are already bigger than most kids your age. Broad shoulders, strong frame, naturally intimidating presence. But internally, you're still developing. You're shy, sensitive, observant. You feel everything deeply. You notice when your parents are stressed. You notice when money is tight. You notice when pride hides pain behind forced smiles. You begin to understand that adulthood is heavier than it looks. And somewhere inside you, without ceremony, without announcement, a promise forms. You will never let your family feel unstable again. You don't know how yet. You don't know through what vehicle, sports, business, entertainment, something else entirely, but you decide. And that decision, made quietly in the middle of uncertainty, becomes the foundation of everything that follows. Stage 2, the almost NFL life. You grow taller, stronger, wider. Your body begins to match the pressure you've carried since childhood. Strength is no longer just survival, it becomes direction. Football becomes your outlet, not just because you love the game, because it feels like control. On the field, chaos has rules. Effort produces results. If you train harder, you hit harder. If you study the playbook longer, you react faster. It's simple, linear, honest. And for someone who grew up watching instability move like weather, that structure feels safe. The University of Miami offers you opportunity, not just a scholarship, a door. You walk into a program filled with elite athletes, future NFL talent, men who breathe competition. The practices are brutal, the expectations are higher, every drill is a test, but you belong. You become part of a national championship team in 1991. You stand on that field knowing you are surrounded by greatness and contributing to it. You feel the energy of winning, the validation, the proof that maybe this is the vehicle, maybe this is how you end the instability. You imagine the NFL. You imagine signing bonuses, contracts, security, buying your parents a home that no one can take away. You picture your mother never worrying about rent again. You picture stability, permanent this time. You believe the dream is aligning, until it doesn't. Injuries creep in. Your role shifts. The draft approaches. You wait, round after round, phone silent. Each passing pick tightens something in your chest. Undrafted. It doesn't explode. It settles, heavy. You sign with the Calgary Stampeders in the CFL. It's not the NFL, but it's a second chance. You tell yourself it's temporary, just a detour. You train hard, you push, you fight for position. 2 months later, you're cut. No ceremony, no explanation that makes it easier, just a transaction. You're 23 years old, you have $7 in your pocket. 7. After years of training, sacrifice, discipline, belief. 7. You sit alone and feel the weight of it, the scholarship, the championship, the dream, gone. For a moment, a real dangerous moment, Doubt gets loud. Was the pressure too big? Were you just average surrounded by greatness? Did you mistake potential for destiny? But here's what separates this chapter from collapse. You don't stay in the question. You move to the next one. What now? Rock bottom feels solid, and instead of sinking into it, you plant your feet. Because you've learned something about pressure. It doesn't break you. It reveals you. And now you're about to find out who you really are. Stage 3. Becoming the Rock. You go back to wrestling, not because it's glamorous, because it's available. Football closed its door. The NFL dream dissolved quietly. And now you're standing at a crossroads between pride and practicality. Wrestling feels like going backward, like stepping into your father's shadow instead of building your own. You don't want to be Rocky Johnson's son. You want to be your own name, but opportunity doesn't always arrive wrapped in ego. So you take it. You train. You study the craft. You learn that professional wrestling isn't just strength. It's psychology, timing, presence, performance. The ring is theater disguised as combat. You debut in WWE as Rocky Maivia. Bright smile, clean energy, good guy persona. The company positions you as the future. The crowd doesn't agree. They boo you. Not casually, relentlessly, night after night. Die, Rocky, die. Imagine standing in an arena of thousands, trying to perform, trying to prove yourself while the audience chants for your failure. Not indifference, not mild dislike, rejection, loud, coordinated, unapologetic. You feel it in your chest. This is your second public collapse. First football, now this. You tried to do it the right way. Be respectful, be marketable, be the smiling hero. But something feels forced. You're playing a character that isn't you, and the audience senses it. You could quit. Again. You could say the world just doesn't get you, but instead, you do something different. You listen. You study the boos. You analyze why it's not working, and then you make a decision that changes everything. Stop trying to be liked. Start being real. You lean into confidence, into sharp wit, into controlled arrogance. You turn the crowd's rejection into fuel. The smile becomes a smirk. The politeness becomes dominance. The good guy becomes magnetic. You reinvent yourself as the Rock, not a legacy, not a tribute, a force. The eyebrow, the cadence, the rhythm of your promos, the unapologetic charisma. You stop asking the crowd for approval. You command their attention. And something shifts. The boos turn into reactions. The reactions turn into engagement. The engagement turns into obsession. You become one of the greatest mic performers in wrestling history, not because you followed the script perfectly, but because you injected yourself into it. You headline WrestleMania. You win championships. You electrify arenas. But here's the deeper transformation. You learn reinvention. You learn that failure is feedback. You learn that authenticity scales. And most importantly, you learn that identity is a weapon. You are no longer Rocky's son. You are no longer the undrafted player. You are no longer the rejected rookie. You are the Rock. And for the first time, the world isn't deciding who you are. You are. And that realization becomes more powerful than any championship belt you'll ever hold. Stage 4. Hollywood doesn't respect you. You leave wrestling at the top. That's what makes it confusing. You're headlining WrestleMania. You're one of the biggest stars in the industry. You've built an identity powerful enough to shake arenas. And you walk away. People call it risky. Some call it arrogant. Why leave something you've mastered? Because you've learned something about ceilings. And you can feel one closing in. You step into Hollywood believing your charisma will translate, believing presence is universal. But Hollywood doesn't see what arenas saw. Hollywood sees one word. Wrestler, not actor, not leading man, just muscle. You land roles, but they're careful roles. Side character, exotic villain, large man with minimal emotional range. You star in The Scorpion King. It performs decently, but critics don't treat you like an artist. They treat you like a novelty. You're told to shrink, lose weight, soften your physique, distance yourself from wrestling, stop using catchphrases, stop being so big. They want you to blend in. And for a while you try, you adjust, you listen, you say yes to projects that feel safe. Some movies underperform, some disappear. The industry whispers quietly, maybe he's not a real actor, maybe he peaked in wrestling, maybe charisma doesn't equal craft. And you feel it, not publicly, privately. This is the second collapse. Different arena, same doubt, but this time you don't spiral, you analyze. You notice something critical. You're trying to fit into a mold that wasn't built for you. You're trying to earn respect by shrinking, and shrinking has never been your strength. So you make a decision. You fire your team, not emotionally, strategically. You rebuild your circle from scratch. You create $7 Productions, named after the lowest financial moment of your life. $7. That number becomes your anchor. your reminder. You stop chasing validation. You start building leverage. You choose projects intentionally. You position yourself not as former wrestler trying to act, but as a franchise stabilizer. Fast 5 changes everything. You don't enter that film quietly. You dominate it. You're not comic relief. You're gravity. Audiences respond. Box office numbers climb. Then Jumanji explodes. Not a minor success, a global phenomenon, billions in revenue. You become one of the highest paid actors in the world, not because Hollywood welcomed you, because you engineered inevitability. You control your brand, your partnerships, your image. Your work ethic becomes legendary. 4 a.m. workouts, script discipline, relentless promotion. You become bankable, reliable, predictable in the best way possible. And the industry shifts. They stop asking if you belong. They start asking how to build around you. This stage isn't about fame. It's about authorship. You stop waiting for permission. You stop trying to be smaller. You lean into who you are. Big, driven, disciplined, charismatic, unapologetic. You don't become a wrestler who made it in Hollywood. You become a global brand. And the lesson becomes clear. Reinvention isn't about changing who you are. It's about amplifying it strategically. Hollywood didn't respect you until you stopped asking it to. And that shift, that internal pivot, becomes one of the most important moments of your entire life. Stage 5. The discipline machine. People see the muscles. They don't see the system. They see the physique, carved, defined, larger than life. They see the Instagram posts, the sweat, the motivational captions, the 4 a.m. wake-ups. What they don't see is the structure underneath it all. Because discipline isn't performance, it's architecture. You wake up before sunrise, not when it's convenient, not when you feel inspired, before the world demands anything from you. 4 a.m., the alarm goes off. There's no debate, no internal negotiation. You don't ask, do I feel like it? You move. Cardio in the dark, headphones on, mind clear. You train while most people are asleep because you understand something critical. Winning happens in invisible hours. You don't rely on motivation. Motivation fluctuates. Discipline doesn't. Meals are measured, protein calculated, calories tracked. No guesswork, no emotional eating, no chaos. Because you grew up around chaos. And now, control is everything. Your body isn't just aesthetic, it's proof. Proof that consistency compounds. Proof that structure builds stability. And this discipline extends beyond the gym. You build businesses. Terramana Tequila, not just a celebrity label, but a carefully engineered brand. Project Rock with Under Armour, not just apparel, but an extension of identity. $7 Productions, named after the lowest financial point of your life. $7. That number never leaves you. It isn't shame, it's fuel. It reminds you how fast things can disappear. So you build redundancy, revenue streams, ownership stakes, long-term equity. You understand leverage. You understand brand trust. You understand that your name carries weight, and weight must be managed carefully. You fail publicly sometimes. Box office misses, business risks, criticism, but you never let failure compound. You adjust quickly, you iterate, you tighten systems. Behind every smiling red carpet photo is a machine of decisions, time management, strategic partnerships, energy allocation, because you've learned something powerful. Success isn't explosive, it's repetitive. It's not the loud moments that build empires. It's the quiet ones, the daily, the boring, the consistent. You don't chase intensity, you engineer routine. And eventually, something shifts. You are no longer just the performer. You are infrastructure. Studios build around you. Brands align with you. Audiences trust you. Because consistency creates safety, and safety builds scale. You become known as one of the hardest working men in entertainment. But internally, it isn't about reputation. It's about protection. Protection against instability, against collapse, against becoming that 23-year-old with $7 again. Discipline becomes your armor, routine becomes your insurance, and you realize something quietly. The strongest thing about you isn't your physique, it's your refusal to deviate, and that is what turns effort into empire. Stage 6. The weight of being The Rock. Now imagine living inside expectation, not occasionally, daily. Every move documented, every statement analyzed, every project measured against your last success. You are no longer just Dwayne. You are The Rock, a brand, a symbol, an idea people project onto. When you walk into a room, you don't just enter physically, you arrive reputationally. People expect presence, confidence, motivation, strength, leadership. You are expected to be unshakable. And here's the paradox. You built that image intentionally. Now you have to maintain it. You can't disappear easily. Vacations become content. Workouts become headlines. Smiles become strategy. Even silence becomes interpreted. You understand that millions look to you not just for entertainment, but for reassurance, for proof that discipline works, that reinvention is possible, that collapse isn't final. You are carrying more than muscle. You are carrying narrative. And narrative is heavy because internally you are still human. You still remember eviction. You still remember the silent draft day. You still remember sitting in your car with $7. That memory never leaves. It keeps you sharp, but it also keeps you vigilant. You don't allow yourself the luxury of complacency because you know how quickly the world shifts, markets change, public opinion shifts, relevance fades, so you operate with urgency even at the top. That's the unseen tension of success. When you've built something massive, maintaining it requires even more discipline than building it did. People assume the pressure disappears once you make it. It multiplies. You don't just represent yourself. You represent aspiration. You represent resilience. You represent what happens when someone refuses to stay down. And somewhere right now, there's a young man sitting in a car with almost nothing, watching you. If you slack, he sees it. If you quit, he feels it. If you break publicly, it ripples. That responsibility changes how you move. You don't chase validation anymore. You chase standards. You built a personal code. Wake early, train hard, show up consistently, speak deliberately, build strategically, because you understand something most people never do. Fame amplifies everything. If you are disciplined, it amplifies discipline. If you are chaotic, it amplifies chaos. So you choose structure, you choose repetition, you choose routine, not because you are afraid, but because you are aware. The world sees dominance, you feel duty. The world sees confidence, you feel responsibility. And every morning at 4 a.m., when the alarm cuts through the dark, you don't just get up to train your body, you get up to reinforce identity. Because at this level, staying sharp isn't optional, it's survival. And the final truth becomes clear. Your life as Dwayne Johnson isn't about being the biggest man in the room. It's about being the most accountable to your family, to your standards, to the promise you made as a teenager standing outside a locked door. You are not fueled by ego. You are fueled by memory. And memory is relentless. So you keep moving, not because you have to, because you decided to. And that decision, made long before the fame, is what still carries you forward today.